Fellas, it's September, one of the best months, as it brings so many things, such as... No! It's the start of fall, the moment where leaves start changing and my AC bill finally becomes manageable again. And with fall comes the Halloween season. Stores start putting up decorations and costumes, Spirit Halloween takes over abandoned strip malls, and for me personally, I get in the mood for some classic schlock. I love old cheesy horror movies, especially the types from the 80s and 90s. There's something about old slasher movies especially that gets me into the spirit of the season. I love the cheesy acting, the kills, but more than anything, I adore camp. Campiness gets you a long way with me when it comes to horror. In fact, it's what I associate Halloween with the most. You can be a straight up trash movie, but with the right amount of cheesiness, I'll adore it. What's great is a lot of these slashers and horror movies can be legitimately unsettling, but what I think elevates it is the fact that they can also be self-aware and a little silly. That's the horror that I personally always preferred. Pure, dark, depressing shit can work too, but when I can really enjoy myself throughout, where I can be unsettled but also laugh and remember the fun ride, that's what the Halloween season is to me. It's why Season of the Witch is my favorite Halloween movie. It's why I love all three original Evil Deads. It's why House of a Thousand Corpses is my favorite Rob Zombie movie. I love deeply personal and engaging stories in horror. Yes, I mean, I just talked about BioShock, but I also love it when it's not that deep. When the point is to eat your popcorn, get your heart racing, and yell with your friends whenever there's a funny kill. But for a long time, I couldn't really find that sweet spot in video games. A lot of times when a game wants to be a slasher, it takes more from the gritty eras of the 2000s, or takes from things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, fully trying to build fear, but they don't have that fun campiness. Which is fine, but like I said, I want that sweet spot. Resident Evil and Silent Hill do have that campiness sometimes, but it's not usually on purpose, or it's in a game that fully drops the horror part. It's a very weirdly specific sweet spot to hit, but for me, I just couldn't find it in gaming. That is until last year, literally on Halloween, when I decided to give a series I knew about for a long time a look. And that was when I finally found it, and I'm glad that I did, because Twisted Metal was exactly what I was looking for. Twisted Metal is amazing. It's unsubtle violence and destruction with horror movie tropes mixed with dark humor and metal music. It's everything my mom wouldn't let me play when I was a kid, and it's fucking great. Even without the atmosphere it has, it's still fantastic on concept alone. It's something that a game like Rocket League uses to fantastic effect. That being, take a relatively common concept, in Rocket League's case soccer, or in this game's case, a deathmatch shooting game, and swap the people for cars. It's genius, and it immediately draws your attention. Now, yes, Mario Kart had already been doing vehicle combat at this point, but that was never the focus. It was a side mode, fleshed out enough for what it needed to be, but not usually as good as the actual racing portion. But here, it's all centered around the fighting. The physics are designed for naught but violence, where racing in this game would probably feel heavy and a bit awkward, driving around, crashing, and gunning feel incredible with this engine. With every other little thing in the game, from the arenas to weapons to car designs to the story, all linking together to make an incredibly fun, cohesive experience. Now, most Twisted Metal fans will tell you that, while yeah, Twisted Metal 1 is good, it's basically just a testing ground for the eventual Twisted Metal 2, which would really push the series forward into what it was always meant to be. And you know what? I would agree. I think that's true. Twisted Metal did evolve greatly in 2, and that one's one of, if not the best game in the series. However, what I take from 1 isn't that it's a lesser version of 2, it's, holy shit, I can't believe they got it so perfect before even getting to create what they always meant to.
This is brilliant. But I like this.
I think a lot of people didn't start the series with this one. They started with something like Black or 2012, or in the modern era, probably went back to 2, then went on to play the others. And I'm not here to say those people are wrong for not starting at 1. After all, despite only playing it for the first time like a week ago, Twisted Metal Black truly is fantastic, and I'd recommend it to everyone. However, I started with this one. I wanted to get the full experience going through each game, which was a mistake because I disliked 3 and 4 so much that my marathon paused for almost a full year, but again, I digress. And I feel that if Twisted Metal 1 was really nothing more than a small demo for the future of the series, I wouldn't have gotten so into the series like I am now. The gameplay of Twisted Metal 1 is perfect. It is insane to me how hard they nailed it on the first try. See, in a game like this, you want the cars to feel heavy. You want to feel each impact that your car makes, and you want want each well-aimed strike to not only do damage, but to hit your dopamine receptors like you want a slot machine. It can't just be weightless RC cars going in circles. You want to feel like you're driving a heavy piece of machinery into other heavy pieces of machinery, while also keeping up a high speed so you can get through these big arenas quickly. And luckily, the game nails all of it. Getting into fights in this game has such a natural ebb and flow. You'll go from driving around grabbing weapons to engaged in a one-on-one to either winning, losing, or retreating for help. What helps is that there's a button that automatically does a straight 180, meaning that you and the other car will basically get into a jousting match until one of you gives up. And if another car joins in, then that just adds to the mayhem of it. There's another thing that adds on to it as well. You're all in vehicles, going crazy fast, slamming into one another. Even if two of you get into a graceful joust going past each other multiple times, the second a new person joins in it, it becomes much more chaotic and you need to think on the fly. Your car might not be heavy enough and they might damage you. Do you have the right items? Is your special ready? It all creates constant changes in the tempo of a match, which in turn gives you the feeling of chaos the game is trying to put forward. Adding to that chaos and strategy are the weapons themselves. Think of them as less random items from a kart racer, as each one is visible and individually available instead of randomized by picking up a box. Though I do think there is a few too many, a lot of these are really great. Landmines are less traps to leave for people to hit randomly and more of a strategic piece of one-on-ones. If someone's chasing you, that's when you drop one. Because while some cars are small and nimble enough to dodge, a lot aren't. With cars like Sweet Tooth and Hammerhead having a really hard time swerving without losing control. Missiles are the best designed weapons in the entire game, with each type slowly ramping up power while losing accuracy. Power missiles are such a great concept. They do massive damage, more than a lot of special weapons, but they have zero tracking and tend to be pretty rare, so using them can be very risky. Yes, you could get a kill, but it could also be a complete waste of a great weapon. The homing missiles are the exact opposite. They're not only common, but usually will always be a bullseye. They just do very little damage, but they're great for tossing out in the heat of a fight, with fire missiles being not only the middle ground, or should I say, missile ground. They have decent homing and damage, but they still require you to think about using them. What's great about them more than anything though is how common they are. If your back's against the wall, you can almost always find some fire missiles nearby to get yourself going again. I will say though, I don't care for most of the non-damage weapons. Tire spikes slow people down, which isn't crazy useful, and oil slick is useless when you use it, but it's agony when it's used against you. The only one of the non-lethal weapons I like are freeze missiles, as they act as the perfect opening for an attack, but like power missiles, have no tracking, so it's a risk of wasting it, but a reward of tons of free damage after it hits. But most of all, they're special weapons. These are genius, as in a game like this, items aren't always around for you to nab, and while you do have machine guns, they do very little damage when not paired with those items. This is where special weapons really hit their stride. They are always there, even when you've used them all. You know it's only a bit of time until they come back and you can go nuts again. Not all of them, Darkside's kinda sucks, but I can't think of any others I'd call bad. And they're what really balances the game's cast. Which, if I'm talking special weapons, I can't not talk about them too. Twisted Metal would not be what it is without its cast. Yes, of course, there's Sweet Tooth, the most iconic character from the series, but just about every other character in this game is also iconic in one way or another and has returned in other games. Well, besides that one. What I love about it is they don't even have extensive characterization out of the profiles and endings, which we will get to, but even without those, they still stay memorable just from how each one plays. See, Twisted Metal is a short game, only 6 levels long, but because each car plays so differently, you're encouraged to go back and try again with other characters. What adds to this is just how intuitive each playstyle is just based on car design. Sweet Tooth is a big awkward ice cream truck. The game describes it as a bathtub on wheels, so it's not insanely fast and tends to be pretty heavy. However, that's a lot of weight to be throwing around. With a powerful, pretty large special, it does a lot of damage. It's a very weird, out there car, so you expect it to be pretty odd to drive, and it is exactly that. But if you master it, it's one of the most fun cars in the game. Mr. Grimm is on a small motorcycle. He's way more vulnerable than anyone else, so as you'd expect, he can be very frail. Yet because of his size and vehicle, he's insanely fast and handles easily, along with an incredibly powerful special that, while it requires accurate shots, can take down most enemies faster than they can even see you. It's that same mindset that's instilled in you by the missiles. Nothing is ever all give or all take, it's always a mix of both. which is something the game very naturally shows you within seconds of choosing a character and grabbing an item. The large vehicles like Hammerhead and Darkseid are built around attacking head-on. No strategy, no maneuvering, just straight up girth. And while Darkseid's special doesn't add to this, Hammerhead's does, as it's literally just running people over. Thumper has a similar game plan, but it's a lot more fragile than the big cars, meaning that to get maximum damage from the flamethrower, you've got to consider if it's worth the damage you could take. And then there's my personal main, Yellow Jacket. What I love about him is just how much personality you get from his car before you even read his description. It's a taxi with gun strapped to it, and the weapon is a Molotov cocktail. Good damage and recharge time, but it really just paints how overall, he's probably a skilled driver, but he doesn't have the technology or insanity of the others. And here's the thing, this was their first time introducing any of these characters, and they had to make a good impression. Yes, they have descriptions like a fighting game would, but not everyone is going to read those. They're going to look at the cars and hit play. And instead of just thinking, well, you're not supposed to just choose a car and hit play, they adapted to it, making it so just by looking at a vehicle, you can get a small idea of what your game plan is going to be. Something I've brought up a few times is the overall chaos of the game, and that's what I want to talk about now. Twisted Metal is incredibly chaotic, but weirdly enough, not in a way of an uncontrollable nightmare of gameplay, just more in a way that you'll need to think on your feet as you won't know exactly what's going to happen next. What I mean is, yes, there are times where you'll be caught off guard, multiple enemies surrounding you, shots firing everywhere, but even if you didn't expect it, the developers did. It never feels like the game is out of your control. In fact, it's more of just very quickly trying to figure out how to regain control of each encounter before you die. However, what Twisted Metal does is creates an atmosphere of chaos, more than just an uncontrolled environment. There's tons of vehicles of different sizes chasing each other down, surrounding you, along with the overall heaviness of your vehicle, making you need to consider each move. The music tends to be loud metal or rock that the gameplay already pushes. Along with that, with each passing level, the game adds more and more enemies, capping out at 8 total people, with you needing to get rid of all of them to move on to the next level. Enemies will fight each other, but if you're in their sights, they'll specifically go for you, meaning with each fight, you'll be taking on more damage as your car shows more wear and tear. It turns into both a game of aggression but also rationing, as not only do you only have 3 lives per level, but you need to pay attention to how much healing is available. This is because of my personal favorite mechanic that this game has that not many other Twisted Metals have, which are healing pads. These are in set locations and heal a ton of health, but can only be used once. Memorizing where they are and when to retreat for one is one of the most important parts of the game, and I love it. Yes, other games have healing packs in specific locations, but I don't think they work quite as well as these. These are all set in stone. You won't always have them, and you'll need to time when exactly you'll have a chance to use one. Not only that, but unlike health packs, enemies will never use them. They are a safe spot meant only for you, the player, to take advantage of and get a moment of respite. But what's genius is, again, it's all planned out by the developers. They give you an atmosphere of chaos and panic, but when you use these healing pads with their short pauses of animation, you break that suspense a little bit, resetting your thinking so you can easily get back into the fight without as much worry. None of this would work quite as well without the fantastic maps, of course, and this game has some really good ones. They aren't all amazing, but I can't really think of any that I specifically dislike. The arena is a perfect introduction. It's a more controlled one-on-one fight in a small space, so you can get your bearings with the controls and items before it thrusts you into warehouse district warfare. It's a big jump in size, teaching you a lot more about maneuverability, along with more sudden fights you'll be getting into with these corridors. Freeway free-for-all is okay, but for its size, I don't like the lack of enemies and just how often you're going down these linear paths. When you get into fights with a lot of cars, it's amazing with how little space you have, but when you're not fighting, it's a bit of a drag. Then we get into River Park Rumble. Similar to the second level, but those tight lanes are split by a wide open space in the middle, creating way more dynamic fights back to back. You'll take out someone in the streets, then go into the river where you're circling around each other. Then the natural need to heal will take you back into the building areas. I adore Suburbia. It is massive, but the fact that there's 8 opponents make it feel a lot more claustrophobic. The freeway area isn't needed, but the different sections as a whole always being filled with people makes it a lot more chaotic and fun despite how massive it is. It can tank the frame rate, which is lame, but honestly it's so fun fun that I don't even notice half the time. And it's a fantastic final test before going into rooftop combat. This one's also great. It takes the smaller arena size from the opening level, fuses it with the different sections of suburbia or riverside, and adds bottomless pits. I love it because it also changes depending on the car. With a fast car, you can freely hop between one building or another, while heavier ones need to find bridges and other paths to chase you down. It really makes you learn the layout, especially once Minion gets involved. Minion is this game's only boss, and I love his introduction. Just a complete pause saying, "This is last year's champion. Good luck," before you immediately have to rethink how you've been playing. Minion will kill you very quickly, so you have to plan out your paths in order to play aggressor. You have to avoid getting stuck too close to him as well, or he'll eat your remaining lives insanely fast. I also love how once again, the game feels no need for subtlety. It's a demolition derby style contest, and the winner of last year's was just a fucking tank, and I love it. Also, you can make him do this. Again, it's amazing to me how all of this works so well on their first go at it. You'd expect the controls might not be as good, the cars might all play the same, or maybe the maps would be lacking, but it all works so well. When I first played it last year, besides learning the buttons, it all came very naturally because the game was built so well. And fuck it, I'm still not done, because I also adore the story. Twisted Metal doesn't have a complex story, but what it does have is a great premise and really fun characters. The Twisted Metal tournament is a violent demolition derby style contest with select participants, and the winner gets a wish granted by the host, Calypso. This is the 10th one, and all the contestants have a reason to be there, whether it be to take Calypso down or to get a wish granted. And that's it. But that's such a fantastic concept for a game like this, especially with the visual style of that grimy 80s slasher type horror. And remember how I said the characters have tons of personality even with such small little hints? Here's where that comes from. The wishes all show a lot of character. The two idiots driving Hammerhead just asking for tires, Sweet Tooth asking for a paper bag, Thumper asking for a safe neighborhood, and he gets it. All of it describes these people so well, whether in comedy or just normal storytelling. And while yes, the text crawls are a little lame, we've got something a lot better. See, the original game was going to have these live action endings, but because they were made with a budget of $15 and a smoke machine, they ended up getting cut. But we do have them now, and they are my favorite thing ever made. The best one has to be Sweet Tooth. The actor is having so much fun just shouting, and Calypso's actor is so cheesy.
You have won my contest. Welcome to my home. You said it would be easy. Do you know what they did? Do you? Now it's my turn.
And yeah, it is funny when he gets the bag, but we're not even done because he pulls a gun and just starts killing them for no reason. But then his hostage pulls a gun on him and he just goes... Okay, I'm sorry, but the best one is actually Mr. Grimm. He wants Calypso's soul, and it turns out he's the Grim Reaper, and he bought his hand from Party City, and then he just ties Calypso up and leaves. Wait, okay, I was wrong. The best one is actually Hammerhead. They show up without a wish, but then see Calypso is surrounded by men and women in swimsuits, and they just say, "We want base!"
Stop!
Look how fucking excited Calypso is to grant this wish. He doesn't skip a beat. Okay, the best one is actually Yellow Jacket. This man murdered like 10 people just to drive again.
Well, actually, sir, I really wanted just another chance to drive.
My God, you killed everyone.
To which Calypso then offers him a potion, doesn't really explain it, just says, "Dude, trust me."
Please, Mr. K, what have you got to lose? Trust me.
To which the best reaction in the universe is given.
Oh, that's strange. It tastes like... Ah!
To which Calypso offers him a job as a recruiter for future tournaments, in which we get legitimately an iconic line read that I can't get enough of.
Sounds good to me, baby.
You know, it's funny. Calypso in this game tends to give people what they ask for. Usually there's a twist or he just fucks people over. Like in 2 Onward, it's normally, "Congratulations for your victory in my Twisted Metal contest. What in this world do you wish for?" Well, Mr. Calypso, if I'm being honest, I just wish that the world would stop going to war all the time for petty reasons. Die! Not to say there aren't some here. He sends Outlaw to space, that's funny. But in the best ending, Spectre, who's a ghost, just asks to be brought back to life, which Calypso does. But then he just shoots him for no reason, which he loves to do. Look at Thumper's ending. Thumper wants his girlfriend back, which Calypso gives, but then he also gives up the kidnapper, whose acting is just amazing.
You don't have to do this, man. You don't have to do this. I'm sorry about the girl, man. You don't have to do this.
But it turns out he really doesn't have to do this. So he leaves peacefully. But Calypso just reacts like,
That was anticlimactic.
Oh my God.
these never get old. I understand that some of the actors were embarrassed by these, but come on, man, these are amazing. Future games would have better presented and, weirdly enough, worse presented endings. But these are just so fun and really add to the camp that I love so much about this game. A few months ago, in my No More Heroes video, I explained what a perfect game is to me. It's a game that sets out to do specific things and does all of them without missing a beat. Yes, some people might not like what it did, but it feels like the developers and directors made exactly what they wanted, with not a single part of it being broken or not working as it was meant to. I think Twisted Metal 1 is exactly that. Yes, some of it has aged, but the gameplay truly hasn't. The maps haven't, and the overall campy slasher style hasn't aged either. I can't find any real flaws with the game, which is insane because, as I've stated, there are games in this series that take what it did and go even further, and yeah, I'd love to talk about those, but like many other videos on my channel, this one's probably going to get a sequel at some point, but not now. Not to mention that there's multiplayer. I've never played it because I don't have any friends, but it exists. Twisted Metal 1 is such an insane start to a series. It nailed every single thing it set out to do, and yet was still able to do more in its sequels. I hate that I slept on this series for as long as I did, but I'm very glad I eventually got to it. And I'm even happier that I chose to start with the original. It's an incredibly solid foundation, one that to this day somehow still doesn't have any cracks in it. There's better and worse games in the series, but as a starting line, I don't think this one could have been any better. I think there's a reason that on modern PlayStation platforms, the Twisted Metal games available include 2 and Black, but they also include this one. I mean, if I'm honest, all of them should be available, and it's dumb that some aren't, but I digress. Even if all of the games couldn't make it up onto modern storefronts, I'm glad this one was included. It's up there with its sequel, and of course Black, which is one of the highest rated games on Metacritic. God damn. I mean, it is pretty good. But so is this one. But at this point, I have been repeating myself, so I'll close out by saying, I'm really bad at writing outros. I'm never coming back.